Hey, what's up, Shining Otaku? It's Cloud9 here today. And today, this is going to be yet another Why Your Manga Sucks Writing Edition video. Now, the topic of today is going to be more of like an attack straight on your baby, the project you treasure the most. Some call it the passion project, some call it a magnum opus, otherwise known as a masterpiece. But what we're really going to talk about as it relates to that is, when is the best time to publish your passion project, your magnum opus? Is it right away as your journey as a creator? Is it something that you should wait before you do? I'm going to give you the answer to that today. Now, here's the thing. Whenever you're working on a passion project, there's a few things to consider. You want to make sure that you, of course, have an understanding of the topic in which you're discussing. So if, let's say, you're talking about, or let's say that the story happens to deal with being a detective or with cops, right? You want to make sure that you have a full understanding of what it is to be a cop, and not just the understanding that you might get from a movie. I feel like that's a lot of what you see out there, is people gaining inspiration from what they may see from other mediums, not actually figuring out ways to be able to gain that knowledge for themselves. So it is important that you do get that knowledge or do a lot of research on your own to be able to uncover your own interpretation. Now, here's also the thing you want to consider too, which I think is more of the bigger thing. A lot of creatives out there, we have our passion project, and it's something that's very important to us, and we want to get started on it right away, but we don't have the storytelling techniques or really have a real concept of storytelling to be able to execute it properly. So you may have an excellent idea, which I'm sure you do. You have probably the best idea in the world. A lot of us, we all feel that way. And that's not to say that's not true, but you have to make sure that everyone else can even grasp a percentage of that vision. No one will ever be able to see your exact vision. That's impossible, because of course it's what's in your head. Even if you're doing both the art and the writing, no one can see your exact vision 100%, because in order for us to be able to do that, we'd have to be in your head. But you can try to meet it as much as possible, and of course that comes with understanding storytelling tactics to be able to execute it. It's always different with seeing something versus executing the actual process. You can read the ingredients in, let's say, for example, a cookbook, but just because you're reading the ingredients doesn't mean it's going to have the same flavor or pizzazz or even the same texture as maybe another cook. Hence why cooking has its own methods of madness that it requires in order to be able to be proficient in it, especially if you're like going down the path of being like a chef or something like that. Anyway, I digress. That's something that I really want to stress really hard, because I know a lot of creatives who have their passion projects. One of my buddies, in fact, has his passion project, worked on it for years, had it as a novel, right? And he doesn't really have a lot of experience in terms of creating comics. He has a lot of experience in terms of making writing novels and such, right? Writing in a novel format. But in terms of creating comics, that experience isn't really there. And there's nothing wrong with not having the experience with that. And it's not to say that you have to wait to like an extreme amount of time. There's no set amount of time that you would have to wait before publishing your passion project. And in fact, you can do it anytime you want, and you can always work on it to improve it. But for example, the medium for comics is different than writing a novel, so to speak. And even though there are a lot of similarities, a lot of core storytelling tactics that you can compare between the two, you still have to use, with comics, it's a lot more visual in the way that you have to execute things. The pacing might be a bit different in terms of how you work a page versus how you do it with a novel. And if you don't have a full understanding of that, it may not come out to its fullest potential. So it's best if you have a passion project, maybe it's something that you may not be able to execute right at that moment, so maybe you have other projects that you may work on in the meantime in order to improve that. But the reason why I stress that mostly for the passion project or the magnum opus is because it's the one that cuts the deepest. It's the one you care about the most. So you want it to be as satisfactory as possible. Otherwise, who wants to put out their magnum opus and it's something that just doesn't catch people? And it's not to say that just because you have everything down that's going to catch everyone around, or it's just going to be the most popular series ever, but you want to at least try to capture the audience that you're trying to shoot for. And it could be a real downer if you weren't able to capture the audience, or the audience wasn't able to pick up on the aspects of the story that you wanted them to pick up on, or even see an aspect of even understand what you were trying to say to them at all. Not because your idea was bad, but because they just weren't understanding what you were putting out to them. And it was all based on the story tactics that you use. Maybe you pace things out too much. Maybe there were certain things that your characters needed to say that the readers weren't getting because they didn't say it. Or maybe you said too much. That's also possible too. Maybe your characters are talking way too much and we're not seeing enough action from them in order for the reader to have an understanding of what's going on, or maybe it just becomes a little bit overwhelming. So these are just things that I just wanted to or that I know that are very important that you guys would hear, or should know about in this case, because at the end of the day, your passion project, again, is your baby. So you want to make sure that you get it as close as possible to your desired result at the time, or at the level that you currently are. And sometimes you may wait a little bit longer till you feel as though you're ready to tell that story. Maybe it's a very deep topic that you're going to touch on. And if it is a very deep topic and that you don't have knowledge on, something that you need to be a little bit older to tell, maybe you feel like you need more life lessons to touch on this topic efficiently. That's something that you need to consider when writing a passion project, I would say, if you really want it to essentially be your strongest work. After all, passion projects, or magnum opuses, or as it translates to masterpieces, again, is the work that you want to be known the most for. So just make sure that you make it count and you don't rush it. Anyway, guys, this concludes this video. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section. Please go ahead and rate the video. So if you did like it, go ahead and put a thumbs up, share this video around with your friends, and join Shining Otaku by hitting subscribe. Anyway, guys, hope you guys have a wonderful day and see you later.